Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Auto Intel, the show where we explore how AI and tech are transforming the future of automotive world, from electric vehicles to the smart dealerships and everything in between. Today's episode is powered by personamize.ai, helping car dealerships increase their sales by using cutting-edge AI strategies. If you are into the automotive business and want more leads, more calls, and more sales, check them out. Now, I'm super excited for today's guest, Brett Mooney. He's someone who lives and believes EV infrastructure. Based in New York City, he got hands on experience with the charging stations, EV adoption trends, and city level energy strategy. While he humbly says that he's not an AI expert, that's exactly what makes this episode fun. We're going to explore the real world problems in EVs and see where AI might be able to plug in and help. So, Brett, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. So let's start with your story. Like, how did you get into the EV and charging space?
Oh, excellent question. I was actually working for Zipcar, the car sharing service, and one of our customers was doing fleet EVs, and I got very interested in it. I was actually approached by somebody at EV the charging station manufacturer, to for Zipcar to adopt their charging stations, and started to look into it a little bit more. I ended up leaving Zipcar and then found myself looking into the EV space and got started at this little outfit in Jersey City called Green Spot, where we took, I don't know if everybody remembers what happened with Volkswagen and their diesel emissions scandal. They had to pay billions of dollars, and part of that settlement was that they had to pay it for EV infrastructure. And so we would take that money and basically install charging stations for municipalities, private developers, things like that, and try and do a car sharing service out of those newly formed EVs. So that's how I really got my start. It was great working for a small company like that because I got to wear a lot of hats. So I got to do business development, I got to do project management and deal with the utilities and deal with policymakers. And so it and I found myself that had a passion for it. So and I've continued that. I've been to a couple of different stops now, and just started a new opportunity where I'm working for a. And it's funny that when we first started talking, we didn't. I said that I didn't really have any experience in AI, and now I'm consulting for a company that actually uses AI to design and implement charging hubs.
Oh, that's cool. Like, speaking about passion, like, what excites you the most about the future of electric vehicles?
Well, I mean, I think number one, electric vehicles are just a better piece of equipment than internal combustion engines. I mean, they're more efficient. They cost less to run. They they're better for the environment, which is something that I'm kind of passionate about. And they're more fun to drive too.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it's instant acceleration. They're fun.
Makes sense. So you mentioned that you have been consulting AI. We'll come to the AI part later on the podcast. So, let's have some industry insights for the time being. Like,
Sure.
what are some of the biggest challenges you have seen in the EV infrastructure adoption, especially in cities like New York?
Well, I think first of all, the number one hurdle that we find is education. There's some misinformation out there, number one. And number two is that people just don't understand EVs or EV infrastructure and all the different things that go into it. Uh, a lot of time it's the power and it's working with the utility and how long it can take because you need a lot of power to run these things. Even not just the DC fast chargers, the high powered chargers, but even the level 2 chargers. It's not like plugging in your toaster. It's a lot more than that. So I think making sure that everybody knows what the requirements are and all the different things involved with it. And it's just education about EVs and EV charging stations is a really big thing because people, they're like buzzwords, right? EVs and all that kind of stuff, and it just but people don't really know about it. So I think education is really the most important thing right now.
Makes sense. So, how do you tackle this education gap? Like, how do you go on with this? Like to serve this gap of education in the industry.
Well, I think it's very important when you're speaking with people not to take for granted what they know and what they don't know and ask questions about what they know. And a lot of times when you're speaking to a group, let's say you're speaking to the town council of a municipality where you want to install EV charging stations. Some of them may know something or may even know a lot about EVs and EV charging stations, and others may know nothing about it. So just I guess, be flexible with who you're speaking to and be understanding it. And you have to have a lot of patience too, because people will ask what people in the industry think are kind of silly questions. But to someone who doesn't know anything about it, we have to understand, those of us in the industry have to understand people they're not stupid. They just don't know. And I
Exactly.
don't know if the word naive or they just haven't been exposed to it or they haven't read about it and it's something that is new to them. So they have questions that, you would think anybody would know, but it's because we've been in the industry and that's why we know those things. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's second nature to us now, but not to everybody else. So I think that's where you have to come at it from an educational standpoint of making sure that you ask the right questions to figure out what they know and to go from there and to really educate people on the subject and answer all their questions as best you can and just provide that resource for them so that they can get at least up to speed from from the standpoint of being able to install charging stations and know what it takes and know what is involved and everything else.
So yeah, and one of the most important buzzword that's happening in the industry is like range anxiety. So what do you have to say about the this, and how do you tackle the uh, customer who's like worried about the range? And how do you tackle this?
It's interesting because I have friends who they've driven EVs before and they love the experience, but they won't buy one because that's what they're worried about is range anxiety. And it's frustrating to me because I have a Volkswagen ID4 and I love it. I've taken it to visit my daughter in Ohio, and yeah, it added a little bit of time onto the trip, but it wasn't that big of a deal. And I just think that range anxiety is not something that people should be worried about. It goes away after you have an EV for 2 weeks. Like even myself, who I was in the business for years before I even got an EV. When we first got the EV, I had anxiety about it
Yeah.
running out. But after 2 weeks, you figure out where the charging stations are. You figure out how to plan your trip. And people complain, oh well, at the gas station, I don't need to plan my trip. Like it takes 2 minutes. It takes 30 seconds when you're in the car and you hit the button that says navigate to an EV charging station and it shows you all the charging stations around. Again, it comes back to education. It comes
Exactly.
back to educating them about what is available, how to get over their anxieties and where to find the information and to just try it. So I wish I could get everybody behind an EV for 2 weeks to a month and then they would be used to it and used to how it works and the differences, good and bad, with between internal combustion engine vehicles, and let them make their choice from there. But I think it just comes back to education about it,
Makes sense.
and getting over that range anxiety. I mean, I
Yeah,
wish
that
we could
totally
all
makes
afford
sense.
a lucid air, right? get
Yeah.
500 miles. But
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going that way.
As you mentioned, like that's a good like go-to market strategy to give them a 1 weeks, 2 weeks, or a month of a trial period where they can see, figure out things by themselves. Is that kind of availability is there in states?
I don't know if that's an interesting marketing strategy that
Mm-hmm.
an OEM might want to use to get their
Yeah.
cars out there, to get their electric vehicles out there some more. I mean, go to a Volkswagen dealership or even a Ford dealership and be able to test drive it for not just for 20 minutes, but
Yeah.
test drive it for 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
and see what happens. I mean, it's
And figure out themselves like if it doesn't work out, like the OEM can charge the rent for the days they have rented it for, or like they can return it back, and if they are willing to buy it, and they can go ahead and buy as well. So it might be a good go to market strategy for EVs, and to have as much as people to get to know more about EV and touch and feel and how does it work, and educate themselves like the best experience that you're gonna have is like from learning from yourself and driving it all the way and finding out the charging station where it is, how you can get there. You can all just do it practically rather than like theoretically. Maybe someone watching in OEMs, you guys can try it out. Cool. Let's move ahead. Like, how do you see like private partnerships shaping the EV charging rollout?
I think private partnerships are very important, especially in today's governmental climate. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to be more important than ever for the next few years. And it's something that it's very difficult because it's trying to monetize EV charging stations and without incentives is very difficult right now. The
Mm-hmm.
cost of the charging station and the cost of installing the charging station is prohibitive without incentives. So having private partnerships and working out some kind of a deal where there's, charge point operators investing in these things and taking a long term outlook and looking at things like combining EV charging stations with solar and battery energy storage and creating your own microgrid, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think is where the industry is pretty much heading. I'm seeing, I
Mm-hmm.
was just at uh, the Advanced Clean Transportation Expo in Anaheim last week, and all anybody wants to talk about is combining those different renewable energy aspects into one system and
Mm-hmm.
basically running that system, and how do we monetize it, how do we, who owns it, and you've got the site host and you've got investors and things like that. So I think private investment and private partnerships in EV charging hubs are really going to be the way to go in the future.
Makes sense. Brett, like speaking about like system and the monetization, like how much of a role does data play right now in charging station planning and operations?
Well, planning, it plays a huge role
Mm-hmm.
because it's something that you need to use to predict utilization and to predict things like weather events. You need to look at forecasts to manage your energy and looking at things like that for the charging station. And that's one of the reasons why people are looking at microgrids so that you can use solar and feed the battery energy storage during off peak times so that you can use it during peak times and avoid those high tariffs from the utility and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. And I think that's where data comes in, where you've got to be able to look at things and look at things, look at things that all the different types of things that go into a charging station hub that you might have not thought of originally. It's not just, hey, let's put a charging station in the ground and hopefully cars are going to charge here and we'll make money on it. It's a lot more involved than that. And then especially when you get to fleets and public transportation, specifically school buses and things like that, and somebody who owns a fleet of, let's say garbage trucks or, dump trucks or
Mm-hmm.
things like that, where we're trying to get all of those medium and heavy duty vehicles converted to EVs as well. The data that is needed to plan and then operate ongoing operations for the fleet with the telematics and everything else, uh, data is king when it comes to that.
Exactly. Speaking about data, and we have AI as well. So, do you think AI and data can help optimize charging station placement based on data or like traffic patterns?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, and just for your viewers and your listeners to know, we actually started our conversation
Mm-hmm.
a few months ago,
Yeah.
and this was before I started at Bright Merge. And I mentioned to you, I don't know anything about AI really,
Mm-hmm.
outside of anybody else who's knows about artificial intelligence. And now that I've started as a consultant there and seen the platform that we use AI and machine learning to
Mm-hmm.
take in all that data and provide an optimized charging hub and ongoing operations and energy management, which is which is key. It's the key to make. I mean, I hate to say this. I don't hate to say it, but it's about making money in the end, right? So
Exactly.
if it's gonna make money, people are going to do it, and they're gonna find ways to optimize it and be efficient about it. And using AI and the machine learning that your system undergoes, if you're using AI and machine learning,
Mm-hmm.
it improves the efficiency and the performance and the productivity of your charging hub, and it will
Mm-hmm.
help you, one, to design it and show you what the total cost of ownership is, and then afterwards, once it's in the ground, it helps you manage the whole system so that it operates efficiently and in the best way possible, and where you can monetize it, as best you can. Whether it's, if it's a school bus fleet, obviously you want to save money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a public charging hub, you want to make money. So AI will help you learn how to use the charging stations. It will tell the system when to use the battery storage instead of using the grid for charging, and when you should load the battery storage system, either through the solar that you have on site, or if you don't have solar, through the grid at off peak times so that you can use it during peak times. Hey, we know in the 10-day forecast that there's going to be 5 days of rain and cloud cover. It's not going to be sunny out. So our solar array really isn't going to be able to take in much. So we better use the grid during off peak times to load up the battery energy storage so we can use that during peak times, so that we don't get hit with a higher tariff from the utility for using electricity during peak times. And AI is what runs all that.
Makes sense. That are the scenarios what AI is doing right now, and like, where do you imagine like AI could help in the ecosystem? Maybe with the predictive maintenance, real-time traffic integration, or like smart load balancing.
Well, I mean, that's what it's doing right now. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're doing all of those things.
Where do you like imagine like more of this would happen like in the future? What's gonna happen in the same
Well,
scenarios
I
and
think you're going
how?
to see, obviously, what we're seeing is lots of gas stations are now installing EV charging stations, and especially the ones that aren't necessarily gas stations, the convenience stores that have the big chains of convenience stores that happen to offer gas stations on their property. They're now really turning to also offering electric vehicle charging stations on their property. And So I see AI basically managing that entire operation and showing them ways to, letting them know how many charging stations they need, looking at what the adoption rate of electric vehicles is in the area, all those kind of things that let them optimize their network, and then networking the entire thing together, right? So that, if you have 100 gas stations or 100 convenience stores that you want to put EV charging stations on, you can manage it from one dashboard. And what the AI will do would be to help, manage the energy system, plan for the energy system. And I think, I don't know, in the future, advancements on what is going on with that,
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's probably going to, people are going to be able to use AI to predict what types of charging hubs are going to be the most successful. Like what, there's a difference between AI and machine learning. It's slight, but
Mm-hmm.
they're married to each other, right? But
Yeah.
so the machine learning will help with determining, hey, are these high powered charging hubs that are just off the interstate, are they the most efficient use of power and charging stations and people's utilization, or having them at distribution centers at where
Mm-hmm.
fleets are they the best form? Are level twos better, or are DC fast chargers better? And as we undergo more adoption of EVs, I
Mm-hmm.
think the AI is going to show us which system works best, and it might be different in different places
Mm-hmm.
and based upon different things. If there's a commercial and industrial area, if there's a region or a state, or just an area, geographical area where there are a lot of companies that have a bunch of fleets,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's going to be different than an area where it's mostly all suburban and there's really no fleets outside of, your utility truck or your internet provider, Verizon or AT&T or Comcast or whoever it is, those trucks going around. And you know
Mm-hmm.
the last mile delivery also comes into play. That, I mean, AI is huge for last mile delivery, and
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
that gets beyond just EVs. That's also the logistics of it, but it plans it. The logistics of last mile delivery with EVs is different than last mile delivery with internal combustion engines. So, the AI has to learn how to do that, and will teach people what to do for all those different things. And it's different scenarios, but it's great because it really, you can get granular with it, and that's what I
Makes
think is
sense.
great about it.
Speaking about scenarios, Brett, if you had an unlimited budget, and access to the top AI engineers in the world, what would be that one dream or solution you would create for the EV space?
Well, I think building out charging hubs across the United States, I mean, across the world, but for me right now, it'd be across the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and a combination of level twos and DC fast chargers, just because, you had mentioned earlier about range anxiety, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that is probably the biggest issue. Obviously, there's cost involved.
Yeah.
We need to start making more EVs that are the price of Honda Accords and Toyota Corollas and
Mm-hmm.
Chevy Cruises and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Makes
so
sense.
just
I think that's
regular
the only
ones.
way. Yeah, I think that's the only way that we can figure it out, like making as much stations as we could, so that there is no like a second opinion or a second thought before getting an EV.
Hmm.
Coming to some of the experiences and behaviors, What are some key behavioral trends you are noticing in how drivers use EV chargers?
Well, you mean besides the ones where they don't know how to use the EV charger and they break it and they blame it on somebody else?
Yeah. Besides that one.
Um, I mean, I, I hate to sound like a cliche or a
No worries, we are super open in this podcast.
yeah. No, but I mean, it's been for a while now. It's been people who own EVs install level two chargers at their home. For the most part, those are the homeowners or ones who are, if they live in a townhouse or even in a condo or an apartment, if they have the opportunity to, they'll install a charging station, and therefore 80% of charging is done at home or at the workplace, right?
Yeah.
So and that takes away a lot of the range anxiety. Um, I, it- so you said if I had an unlimited budget and what would be my dream, it's also to provide EV charging for those who are not able to do that. It's people who live in apartments, like people who live in the cities and live in downtowns and things like that, and they have a car. The their residential unit or their residential building may not allow EVs or for
Yeah,
whatever
EV
reason,
chargings.
or they may not have a parking garage.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
it's you're parking your car on the street like many
Yeah,
in
that's
Manhattan
biggest bottleneck.
have. So yeah, I think that would be huge, and I think that just the behaviors of people using EV charging stations. I go back to education, right? It's about educating them about EVs, and then it's also about educating how to use the EV charging stations. One issue I think is that some stations are different than others. When you go and you pump your gas, it's basically put your credit card in, pick which gas you want, regular, super, and then take the nozzle out and plug it into your car and pull on the switch and you're good to go, right?
Yeah.
And basically everyone works like that, whether, you know, Shell, ExxonMobil, Amoco, whoever. With EV charging stations, they look different than each other. They operate different than each other. I think there's a couple of things going on right now that the industry is trying to solve for, and that's one is plug and play, plug and charge, which is coming, and I think it's going to be great because it's basically you're going to drive your car up, you're going to be able to take out the plug, put it into your car. The plug will then, or the charging station will then recognize your car. You'll have either a credit card on file or you'll have an account at whoever you're charging through, and the car will just start to charge. You won't have to unlock it. You won't have to hit a bunch of buttons on there to say, oh, I want this, I want that, the other thing, and trying to figure it out and saying, you pull up to a charging station and you have, an EV Connect account, and it's like, well, wait, can I use this? Do I have to use a credit card instead? Can I just, do I have to use an RFID card to swipe on it or something like that? The plug and charge is going to be great once it's fully adopted and required, and you just pull it out and plug it in, and just like at a gas station, even easier than gas station, and your car charges and away you go. So yeah, the behaviors, it's still about education and
Yeah.
about teaching people how to use them and how they work. But I think having the conformity is going to be key.
So,
Okay.
what advice would you give to startups or founders who want to innovate in the EV charging space?
Well, I would say definitely, EVs are an advanced technology, right? So don't cheap out on what you're using for technology internally if you're going to try and provide an advanced technology to the public or to B2B, B2C, either way. So, use all the assets at your disposal. And, there's an old saying, it takes money to make money. You need to invest in yourself and in your company. If you're a startup and you're just branching out and want to expand and grow your company, that's investing in yourself, right? So you've got to invest in yourself and have the right base so that you can do things properly. And a lot of times when you get in front of investors and you get in front of potential customers, a lot of times you have one shot. So
Exactly.
if you can impress them, great. But if you fail, they're not going to pick up the phone and talk to you again. So make
Exactly.
sure you've done the things you need to do. Make sure your system works the way it's supposed to work, and make sure you have all the tools at your disposal so that your system works better than anybody else's. Right? I mean, that's the key, is that you have to be better than everybody else in some way, shape, or form. So, I know this is AI is your tools of trade, and
Yeah.
that's also what we're using at Brightmerge. So it's definitely something that I see, and I've seen other things in the marketplace, and I don't think they compare to ours. And I think it's because we use the AI to help design the system and provide the ongoing energy management. So like I said, it's make yourself better than everybody else by using all the tools at your disposal, and that's what we're doing, and that's what I would urge anybody else to do.
Makes sense, Brad. We are ending towards the end of the podcast. So, like before we wrap up, like where can people follow your work or connect with you?
Well, I've got a LinkedIn profile. It's just Brett Mooney, and you
I'll
can.
drop a link out in the description. You
Okay.
guys can just connect with Brad. And what's one bold prediction before we wrap up? Like you have about EVs or AI in the next 5 years?
I think EVs and with the use of AI are going to expand more rapidly than people think. I think everybody, because of what's happened with the administration in the United States, think that it's going to be a slowdown. We've seen a few things where some companies are kind of getting, some of the OEMs are kind of getting away from EVs. They're taking a step back from producing EVs as much as they had before. But I think all of that is just related to what all the chaos that's going on with the tariffs and that issue. But I think once that gets straightened out, which it has to get straightened out in some way, shape, or form, for economies to advance and not just ours. So I think once that happens, all of a sudden you're going to see reinvestment and people starting things up again. And I've just seen all the technology that's out there, and it's just so much better. And so I think it's going to snowball. We're right now we're at the very small snowball start. EVs have picked up a lot, but I think they're going to pick up a lot faster than people think, and especially when the battery technology gets to the place where you're going to see $25,000 very good automobiles being produced, and being sold here. So, and that's when people are really going to adopt EVs.
That's a bold prediction. So, Brett, that was an awesome conversation. Big thanks to Brett for sharing real world insights from the EV trenches. Super valuable to hear from someone who actually on the ground helping cities and companies go electric the right way. If you found this episode helpful or thought provoking, make sure you hit that follow button, share it with your friends in the auto tech space, and leave a quick review. It really helps us bringing on great guests as Brett Mooney. And if you're in the dealership space or working on scaling automotive sales, check out personamize.ai. They help dealers close more cars using AI strategies that actually work. That's it for today. Stay curious, keep building, and I'll catch you in the next one. Sudhar signing off from the Auto Intel podcast. Thank you.